Hello friends, I'm Jill Williams. Welcome to the Think Like a Painter podcast, where we'll have weekly discussions about living life as a painter, how we're different, and the mindsets we need to become better artists. I'm a professional artist, watercolorist, and instructor who's passionate about the creative process and helping others to achieve their artistic goals. I've devoted most of my life to art as a painter. I've even worked as a muralist, stained glass artist, illustrator, graphic designer, and even professional picture framer on my journey to discovering my creative voice. I have over 2 decades of experience in the creative trenches to share with you in hopes that you will be informed, inspired, motivated, and most importantly, that you'll learn more about yourself as an artist and how to expand your own creative potential. If you're looking for your tribe of painters, regardless of skill level, I encourage you to join me each week to learn how you can think like a painter. That I'm hopeful will be helpful and encouraging to you in terms of just your own personal mental thought life as a painter. And, you know, the title is Observation, a Painter's Superpower. And I really think that this is true. We're going to get into it today. I want to talk about a couple of different things in terms of this and just sort of break it down into, why painters are different. Why are we looking at things differently? We do see the world differently. We've talked about this a lot. And so I've got 3 different areas that I kind of want to look at that I feel are going to be helpful for you, encourage you, let you know that you're not a weirdo because you see the world differently. You're a painter. You've got these observational skills that are just sort of happening. And whether you're a trained artist or maybe you're self-taught, these are going to be things that I believe are going to be familiar to you, and I just want to reinforce and encourage. Okay, so come on in. So let's jump into it. I want to talk about this idea of observation. And, if you're a painter, one of the things that you're going to spend a lot of time doing is really just looking at things. You look at everything. You notice everything. It's really about noticing. Okay, observation is really about noticing. And if you've had conversations with people who are not painters, it might go something like this. You might say, you might look at something and say, well, that's a white door. It is a white door, but there is sort of this pink light that's coming in. And so I see a little bit of a shadow on one side, but then there's this pink light that's kind of coming in. And so, and you start picking up on all this nuance. Whereas somebody else that's maybe not a painter, they're just like, it's a white door. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't see all that other stuff. And, when I first met my husband, this was something that we went through a lot. And over time, my husband's he's a creative person. He's not a painter, but he is very creative. He's musical. He likes to write and he appreciates art and actually spends some time sketching and drawing and trying to build up his own skill. But when we first met, I remember this was a lot of our conversations was, do you see this shape or that shadow or that color? And at first he did not see those things, but he has learned to, and he's learned to appreciate how to really notice, how to really look at things and see it. And so as painters, we just kind of inherently do this, and sometimes people might think we're a little bit weird and, or whatever, but I'm okay with that. I would rather be able to do all that noticing. I would rather be able to do all that observation and then bring that to my work, than to be without that. If you've ever been with a friend or family member, maybe you go into a store, and I don't know, I'm just going to pull something out of the air. You're just in a clothing shop and, maybe there's a rack of shirts and there's an aqua, a turquoise, a light blue, a baby blue, a navy blue, just all kinds of different things. And there's a lot of people who would say, these are all blue shirts and just sort of give this blanket term of blue, but we see all the nuance, all the difference and variation in those colors. And it's like very important to differentiate those, to a painter. You can't say, navy blue and turquoise are like very different, but a lot of people would just call them both blue and be very comfortable with that. And I find that I really need to make the differentiation. And when I'm talking to other artists, or when I'm talking to other painters, especially, we're making those determinations, those differentiations, in that, because of our ability to just really notice. And it's super important to be able to do that. So if we want to think about it, let's look at this idea of the difference between looking and seeing. And that's what we're talking about. You can look at something and say, yeah, there's a lot of blue shirts over there. There's a white door. But if you want to really see it, there's a difference in looking and seeing. Seeing is all that observation, that noticing. Seeing is being able to tell that there are all of those different colors within that white door, or that there are many variations of blue within that, that dress rack of blue shirts. Okay. So, looking and seeing are very different. I feel very blessed to be able to be in that category of being able to really see, not just look, but just, to really see and see all those see all those differences. And, one of the things that leads to is, we've got this stockpile of visual information that we're constantly assessing, formulating, interpolating, and storing into our mind and storing into our thought process. And also as painters, when we're observing things, one of the biggest things that we start to feel is that urge to paint, okay, that urge to recreate an image, or that urge to, what I like to call, craft an image. It comes, from this need to interpret. As an artist, we're always visual, we're always looking at things, but then there is that part of it where, we know it's like, I've got to create an image. I've got to paint this. I've got to draw this. I've got to whatever. I've got to make something based on my response to the thing that I've seen. And so all of this observation, fills us with all this information, so that when we turn to that, or when we start to lean into that need to interpret, that need to craft an image, we've got all this information. We've got everything, working in our favor. We're just built this way. And it lets us do all this observation and immediately lean into, starting to interpret that and create our own image with that. Let me know if some of these things are familiar to you, or if you've had these experiences, especially with, talking to other people, and they just see the white door. They don't see all of those variations of tone and color that are in the white. There's a lot going on there. When we're talking about this need to, start crafting an image, we all feel this as artists, and we just, I got to paint. I've seen something that inspires me. I've seen something that has motivated me. I've got to respond. I got to create my own, version of this, or maybe it just inspires you to go in a totally different direction. You might see a bunch of blue shirts on a rack, and maybe you do want to go paint something that looks like that, but maybe it just inspires you to go and just dig out your blue paints and try to figure out something that you can do with those. We're not kind of bound by exactly how we interpret. And that kind of leads me to the next point, and that's these, what I like to think of as pathways of expression. There are so many different ways we can actually respond to whatever the scene is, or whatever the stimulation is, whatever the thing is that we've seen that causes us to to have that response, that immediate need to to interpret. There's so many different ways that we can do it. And I think that, when we get ready to start, moving in the direction of interpreting, creating a painting, creating a drawing, whatever it may be, I think that this kind of becomes a tricky spot. It becomes a difficult spot for us a lot of times, because we're overthinking a lot of times. We're also thinking about, there's a lot of voices in our heads, of, things we've heard or things we've read, maybe YouTube videos we've watched, maybe teachers that we had, whatever is going on. There's a lot of voices going on competing for our sense of direction. Okay. And so one of the things that I want to comfort you with today is that, when you're responding and you're ready to start crafting an image, you can take this any direction that you want. And I encourage you to even try taking it in multiple directions, and feel comfortable with it, even though you might not know exactly what it's going to look like or where you're going to go with it. That's okay. We talked about that, in an earlier episode, this idea of, we've got, two different kind of things happening. There's this idea that, are we doing the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? Is this what I should be doing? We've got two different sort of voices coming at us, telling us that we need to do this, but then we're challenging ourselves, and and it's just this back and forth kind of play on our confidence and what we want to do. But realize that that's kind of part of the process, and just take a step in that direction. You might be inspired to do something, and a landscape, for instance, I'll throw that out there, and you're just going to paint the landscape. Something about it inspires you, and you just want to do it. You just want to paint the landscape. But it might happen that there's something about the landscape that was inspiring, but instead of painting a landscape, you maybe just want to do some color play, because you're wanting to respond. The thing that was really the most impactful was maybe the colors that were in the sky, or whatever was going on. That was the part that was really the most important. And maybe it's not so much about painting the landscape, you were inspired by it, but maybe it's just going to be about color play and putting shapes of colors together in such a way that it gives you the feel of a sunset or sunrise. There's so many different pathways for the expression. It can happen not just in terms of what you paint, in terms of like subject matter. It can also be about your style. You can approach this and go off and do something in realism. It can be figurative. It can be abstract. It can, and lots of different phases in between. You have permission to explore any and all of these pathways of expression. And I think a lot of times, we spend a lot of time doing all of this noticing and observing, and it builds up our mental warehouse of all of these thoughts and ideas of everything that we've seen. And we know we want to interpret this. We know that we want to craft something. And then when we sit down and do it, we're almost kind of overwhelmed because we're so observant. There's so much information in there. It can kind of become this, depending on sort of your mindset, it can become a very frustrating thing where you're almost kind of, paralyzed a little bit because there's so much going on. And what I want to encourage you with in that is that, first of all, it's kind of normal. We're taking in lots of information all the time. I mean, it never stops. I mean, when we're driving down the road, when we're having dinner, when we're preparing dinner, when we're having conversations with people, we might be aware of things that are going on in the background, apart from that person's knowledge, because we're making observations all the time. So don't be afraid of this idea that we've got a lot going on. And sometimes it can kind of present itself as sort of oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start. I've got so many things going on. I've got so many ways that I'm thinking about this. There's so many things that I've been inspired by that I don't really know where to, I don't know what is it that what is the thing that I should paint? We get stuck on this a lot. And what I'm here to tell you is you can just paint all the things, pick one and begin, and then you'll either feel like, okay, that's really not the direction that I wanted to go in, or it's going to totally hit the nail on the head, and you're going to be like, okay, yeah, this is the direction that I want to go. Either way, you're going to be informed, okay, when you take action. And we've talked about this a lot. If you will take action, clarity comes, okay? If you kind of just sit and wallow in it, and you're not going to start painting until you decide, what is the perfect thing that I want to paint? What is the one thing? Because I got to pick one. I can only pick one. We kind of get this mindset. We get taught this somehow I don't know, maybe we could, well, maybe we learn this when we're little kids and we go shopping with our mom and like we want all the things and she's like, you got to pick one. You can only pick one. I think that, things like that sort of get embedded into us and sort of creep over, sort of wash over into our art making process. But I want you to know you don't have to do that. You can try to just stop doing that, unlearn that, rewrite the script, and start doing some different things, start handling it a little bit differently. Okay. Just begin. Taking action will bring the clarity that you need. Okay. So let's just say that, you were inspired by this, this white door, and, sometimes interiors are just gorgeous, they're just beautiful, if the light's just flooding in late afternoon or early morning, whatever the case may be. Sometimes those images are really substantial, and they just wake up our brain artistically. But for some of us, it means that we're going to go in there and we're going to try to recreate that scene. For some of us, it just means that we want to maybe pick out those monochromatic cool tones and the monochromatic warm tones and just play with color for a little bit based on how we saw that light sort of flooding in. Maybe that's the direction that you go. Another way is that you might try to figure out, what are all of the values that I'm seeing, and then you might just do something that's just completely monochromatic, just a black and white sketch of just light and the different ways that you see the light interacting as it's pouring through the window or the, whatever the case may be. You've got so many different options about how you can respond and begin to interpret, begin to craft an image based on the things that you've seen. But I just don't want you getting overwhelmed by all of the information, because you're going to have a lot and you'll have it every time. Just pick a direction, pick something, and start moving in that direction, and it will inform you every time. It'll either shut down that direction, you're like, no, that's not really what I wanted to do. So go a different direction, and most likely that will start to open up, and you're like, okay, yeah, this is more of, I don't even really know where I'm going with this, but this is how I want to respond, to the things that I've seen and all this information that I've absorbed. Definitely be encouraged to know that it is a process. There's not going to be this, this one perfect painting that you just imagine, that just magically just pops out of your hands just because you've seen something and you've responded. It's always going to be a process. That is our creative journey. That is our creative process. It's our painting process, and it's going to work that way pretty much all the time. So we don't have to be frustrated that we don't just know how to pick the one thing. We have to kind of chase that one thing and figure out what it is by starting with maybe several things. Let me know if this is making sense to you. Do you have anything to share? Do you have any questions on it, or does it make sense? Does it give you some kind of idea of how to handle that? That idea of, I've just got, there's just so many things, I don't even know where to start with this. I want you to know that you're going to deal with that a lot as an artist, and certainly as a painter, because you are taking in information constantly. It never stops. And it's a good thing, but I don't want you to get overwhelmed by all the things that you come up with. Start just letting that information come out. Start crafting the imagery. Start jumping into your playtime. Start jumping into, we've talked about this a lot too. Hopefully we've all got, prescribed, dedicated time that we're, scheduling. Your creative time needs to be set by appointment, so that you make sure that you're taking care of that. However many times a week you're able to do it. Okay. And when you sit down for that painting time, maybe you just need to play with your colors. Maybe you need to, especially if you get new paints, sit down and just play with those colors for, a couple of hours. And that can happen all at one time. Maybe it's spread out in 15-minute blocks over a couple of days. However it works out for you, spend time with that so that you kind of start to develop a sense of direction. taking action is going to bring that clarity every single time, okay? So I want you to be encouraged that nothing is wrong with you because you're making observations all the time, making the kinds of observations that nobody else is making, okay? You're storing all this away into your creative warehouse. It's there for you. It's there to serve you. It is there to inform you in all of your decision making when you're starting to work. So you have got this, you're definitely, have moved beyond just looking at things, and you're really able to see things, okay? Really able to see things, see the colors, see the shapes, see the lines, see the values. You really start digging into how much information can I really obtain here, okay? You're doing that as a painter, and you'll continue to do it, and you'll get even more precise with it as time goes by. And then when you get ready to, you get to that point where I'm ready to interpret, I'm ready to craft an image based on all these things that I've started seeing. And then when you sit down to do it, don't worry about picking the one thing, okay? Just start taking action, make marks, get out a sheet of paper, put color on it, put marks on it, put lines on it, whatever the case may be, and just start working in that direction. Okay, I hope that's helpful for you. Keep observing, keep noticing, okay? It is your superpower. It provides you with so much information that you cannot glean any other way, okay? You can't look it up online. You can't read about it. You've got to just actually get your eyes out there and looking and observing, noticing all those details and putting all that stuff away into your internal sort of creative toolkit, your creative warehouse, okay, so that it's always there for you, okay? I hope this is helpful for you, and I want you to just get out there, keep doing the things that you're doing, notice every possible thing that you can, even if people are making fun of you for, noticing it. If you've got family members like me, they will, my husband actually has a plaid shirt that has many colors in it, but he will still call it his blue shirt, okay? And I'm thinking there are like 15 colors in this shirt, but it's blue. Okay, we'll call it the blue shirt. You're able to notice all of these things, and they are valuable. It's important to be able to do it. So nothing's wrong with you that you can do this. Put it to work for you. It's there for you, and it will serve you in every good possible way. So thanks for joining me, guys. I will talk to you next week, and take care and happy painting. Talk to you soon. Bye.